Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This course has been designed for the students of post-graduation and also for those students who come to the final year of their FYUP program, either BA honors or either graduation honors, BA BSc honors, or BCom honors, or the BA research, graduation research, the BSc research or BCom research. So those all who are in the final year of FYUP, they have also to learn the course of research and methodology and also in the postgraduate courses. So for them, this course has been designed. You have to attend the 60 lectures, and today we begin with the first lecture of the series. The first lecture is meaning of research, characteristics of scientific research, which will be the topic of the week, but the today's lecture, lecture 1, is science and common sense. Casually speak what we want to speak. We casually give statements what we want to state. Casually we deliver the statements which we want to deliver, which are based on normally the common sense, observations, experiences and maxims in the social life. Observations, experiences and maxims in social life may be sometimes based on the wisdom and may not be based on the wisdom, because we have been listening, we have been sharing these statements, these observations for a long time, and this is why we take it granted to transfer it to the other person, to the audiences, without any check, without any check or without any audit. So, but maybe these are based on wisdom sometime, but mostly these are based on ignorance, prejudices and wrong interpretations. These have come out of the ignorance historically. These have come out of prejudices for many years. These wrong interpretations has come for very long time back. So many times what we find that these common knowledge are contradictory. They contradict each other. They are inconsistent also. They are not consistent. So we have to check it. We have to audit it. On the other hand, the scientific observations, they are made on verifiable evidence. It requires systematic body of proof which can be cited, which can be produced anytime. So, if we have a statement which we claim to be scientific, then other than the common sense, in common sense we don't require the verifiable evidence. In common sense we don't require any proof. We do not require any empirical data to support. We quote it, we consider it, we produce it for others, we transfer it just because it has come to us the same way. But a scientific knowledge, a scientific knowledge is based on verifiable evidence, a systematic body of proof which has to be produced whenever it is demanded. So, when we, for example, you will find that people claiming that man is more intelligent than women, many times you will say that. Or people say that people from rural area are more hardworking than people from the urban area. We frequently listen that people from the rural areas, they are very laborious, they are very hardworking, because day and night they do not see day or night when they have to go for work in the field. Whereas the perception is that those in urban areas, they are very comfortable, they are very comfort seeking persons, and that they are not very laborious as compared to the rural people. We have to check that. Again, there is claim that rural people are more Congress oriented than the urban people, implying that those who inhabit in the rural areas, they are more oriented towards Congress than their urban counterparts. These are some of the claims. Or the urban people are more BJP oriented than rural people. So, that is something which goes in the society. Another example, married people are more happy than unmarried people. Many times we will find that the claim is made that many people, married people, are more happier than the unmarried people. We have to see to it. Is it a reality? Also, many times it is claimed that higher caste people are more intelligent than the lower caste people. That is also to be checked. That is also to be audited. That is also to be verified. Many times we will find that people go out of the house, and if there is a cat crossing their path, they will return back to the home, taking it as bad, ominous and bad sign for their travel. They will go back, sit in the house, and then they will again proceed to their journey. So that is the things which is happening and which is taken in society. If somebody has his wedding or her wedding, and the rain comes, then in our society people will say that it is not a good omen, it is not a good sign, or some particular person, if he is seen in the morning, it will spoil your all the day, the whole day. That is also something which is claimed in the society. We have to check it. So, contrary to this, what would scientific inquiry or scientific research conclude, or it would observe? The scientific inquiry would claim, would say that unlike the common knowledge, woman is as intelligent as man. They both have same kind of aptitude, their intelligence. It is not the man or woman which is more intelligent. It is the opportunities, it is the training, it is the kind of conditions that make man or woman more intelligent. That is the scientific knowledge. Both are equally intelligent. Nobody is superior to anybody. That is the scientific knowledge. There may be no relation between hard work and the rural area or the rural background. It has to be checked, it has to be studied, it has to be empirically verified whether it is reality or not. Maybe people from the urban background, they are more intelligent, they are more laborious. So, it has to be empirically, scientifically checked, verified through scientific methods whether it is a reality that the rural people are hardworking and the urban people are not as hardworking. This remains a common sense knowledge as long as it is not checked, it is not verified, it is not empirically verified through scientific methods. It remains a common knowledge. It would become a scientific knowledge only when it is scientifically verified through it is verified through scientific methods. Then rural people can also be more BJP oriented and urban people can also be more Congress oriented. There has to be data. What is data? Data is the fact on the ground. It has to be collected and then only through scientific methods it has to be verified. Then only we can seal this statement as scientific knowledge, otherwise it remains a common sense knowledge for just passing from one to another as we do, but it would never be considered as a scientific knowledge. We take the example of the Bengal famine, which took place in the late 40s, millions of the Indians in Bengal, they perished. And the common knowledge and the common statement was that they perished because food commodities were not available for the people. And it was taken granted that lack of the food availability, lack of availability of food commodities, that resulted in the in the this large famine which occurred in the in the in Bengal those days, which is very famous, that Bengal famine. However, the Bengal famine, when research was done, the commodities were available. It was not that food commodities were not available, they were available, but they were available at very high prices, which was not to be afforded by the common masses, meaning that the purchasing power of the people had collapsed, simply collapsed. Why? Because there was no employment, there was famine. Who gives employments to whom? And it happened that people did not have even a penny to purchase salt or something. So, it was found that though prices were very high, but food commodities were available, and those who afforded it, they used to purchase it, consume it and survive. But it were those who did not have purchasing power, it were those who did not have money to purchase any commodity on which to survive. So, it was scientifically it was concluded that it was not the lack of the food commodity, but availability of the food commodities, but it was the lack of purchasing power, unavailability of the purchasing power with the general public, with the general people, that collapsed their purchasing power, and that turned into the perishment of human life, millions of human life, which happened in the Bengal famine. We have to differentiate between the two, the common sense knowledge and the scientific knowledge. Common sense knowledge tackles only superficially, whereas scientific knowledge goes into depth of the phenomenon, deep into the phenomenon, to find the realities of a phenomenon which happens. We are going to discuss the how do we distinguish between the two kinds of knowledge. The first criteria that is utilized to distinguish the two kind of knowledges is the conceptual schemes. What is conceptual schemes? These conceptual schemes are rigorously used in scientific inquiry, in scientific in the journey to scientific knowledge. The scientists systematically builds his conceptual theoretical structures and then tests it, he checks it for the consistency. So, in science, the conceptual framework, the theoretical framework and its consistency are of utmost importance. Whereas, these are not of so importance to the common sense knowledge. They can use it in some loose way, but not the way as rigorously used by the scientists. So, for example, there is a person who is very corrupt. His son dies. Everybody would blame his corruption, his father's corruption rather, to the death of the son. That is common sense. That father sins, his father's misdoing is transferred to the son. That is the common sense knowledge. That father has done corruption and his son has died. So, do we think scientists would accept this? No, they would never. They would never. They would go for a postmortem and then certainly find the real causes of his death. Maybe it is heart attack. Maybe some other thing which he was, some other diseases which he was suffering from long and he did not know and the family did not know. It is only a post-mortem which will reveal which was the cause of death of the son of a corrupt person. The scientists would never accept that he died because his father was corrupt. No, it would a scientific inquiry, that is the checking of the autopsy of the dead body, that would require that would reveal the real truth behind the death of the son of a corrupt person. That is the difference between the difference between the scientific and the common sense knowledge. If somebody is ill, we will simply attribute it to his luck. We have to check it scientifically. What is happening? We should not leave it to the luck. We have to go to the doctor who would be sending the patient to various kind of tests, and after studying all the kind of those tests, the doctor would decide what is the real cause of the disease suffered by the person. The science would explain in medical terms. Many times we blame ghosts for many psychological and medical problems in common sense knowledge in our society. Science would never accept this. They would go for a medical checkup because there are many diseases in which these symptoms come that the patient behaves abnormally. That has to be checked medically. That is the scientific knowledge. So, the science would search all this in medical facts, not in the hearsay, not in the what people say, not in what the common people are saying. No, not that. So, for any disease or for anything, there are in our society, they blame many factors. But do we accept them? Does scientists accept them? No. We have to go for a medical checkup. That is what is scientific knowledge. Then comes the second criteria or second distinguishing factor between the science and common sense. That is the empirical tests. The scientist sets up hypothesis, tests the hypothesis, and with the help of the theories, they arrive at a conclusion. But a common man, a general person in the street, he would within a second give his judgment of the phenomenon. Why this phenomenon happening? Scientific would never, science tests or those with the scientific knowledge, they cannot do this. They have to first gather the empirical data, then they have to set up the hypothesis, they have to test it, and with the help of various theories, they make the conclusion. It takes lot of time and effort and money and human power, human resource to study any phenomenon scientifically. Whereas a common person, a general person would immediately within a second would deliver his judgment on the phenomenon. That is not the scientific way. Then comes the next distinguishing factor is the notion of control. What is notion of control? Control is something which is very particularly related to science and scientific research. Because there is a phenomenon and there are many possible causes for it, classified into dependent and independent variables. So, for a phenomenon, there are various factors which are responsible for the happening of or causing the phenomenon. So, how do we know which factor is affecting how much? We cannot until and unless we have a concept of controlling conditions. We have control condition. The common man, he will why should he bother for the going into intricacies and the difficulties of this process? He would simply deliver his judgment immediately without knowing even the notion of control. However, a scientist who is seeking the scientific knowledge, he is not free to indulge in such kind of things. He has or she has to go through the process of control. So, I would be explaining this by giving you certain examples. For example, we take say there are inter-community riots happening all over the world. So, the gentleman would say simply conclude immediately and would say that this is happening because this community is at fault, that community is at fault, and because they are fighting. That is their conclusion from the surface. But a scientist, or a social scientist, when he studies this, he would control various factors. He would go into the depth to find that it is basically the land mafia which has made this to happen, or which has engendered this, managed this to happen. Why? Because of the land. Because those land in which the poor people are inhabiting, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it was out of the city. But now it has come in the heart of the city. The land has become very costly. So, if there is quarrel between these two groups and they clash with each other, we can infuse threat from each other, fear from each other among them, and then we can purchase this land very cheaply so that it is developed, apartments are developed, real estate are developed on this very cheap land to earn unaccounted profits. That is the reality. So, it comes only out of control. The control is why it is very important. Even in science, if suppose somebody is working on the productivity and impact of certain kind of fertilizer on the productivity, or impact of certain kind of government policy on the people, on the education, or whatever it is. So, fertilizer is not the only factor in increasing productivity. There are other factors also: quality of land, quality of seed, quality of irrigation. So, until unless those other factors are not made control to study the impact of the single factor, that is fertilizer, on the productivity, how it can be found. So, control is a very important aspect of science. And now, it is very frequently implied or very frequently applied in social sciences also. In social science also, we introduce a policy that is called treatment in scientific terms, and then we make a control group and a non-control group. So, in social science also, now control is very much prevalent. So, control is very, very unique character of the scientific knowledge. Then the fourth distinguishing phenomenon is that science explains the phenomena in terms of relation with variables, factors. As I explained you, the case of communal rights, the case of productivity, the case of, say, introduction of a special kind of coaching, or the relation between high score and regularity in the class, regularity in the library, availability of the teacher for consultation anytime. So, science explains terms in factors, in variables. It is also, we also call it causal relations. What are the causes which are creating or generating this phenomena? So, science studies that. Common sense may do this, but very loosely, without any sure or rigorous work or process. They would attribute to any factor, but science would never do like this. Science studies the phenomenon or the subject in depth, into the going into the lowest part of the phenomenon, or into the very below the, what is called below the phenomenon, below the ground. Scientific investigation is conscious and systematic, whereas the non-scientific is neither conscious nor it is superficial kind of study, the general knowledge, whereas science is very systematic and conscious search for the knowledge. There may be other examples: relations between poverty and crime, relation between health and wealth, relation between caste and intelligence, relation between illiteracy and corruption. These, there would be quite different in the dealings of this kind of studies between the general knowledge seekers, common knowledge, and the scientific knowledge seekers. They would never blame poverty for the crime. Rather, they would go deep into it. Similarly, for the other examples also, they would go into the depth of the phenomenon, not from the surface level. Then the fifth distinguishing factor in the science and common sense knowledge is the explanation of the observed phenomena. The scientific knowledge rules out any metaphysical explanations of the observed phenomena. As we have previously discussed, there is no metaphysical explanations in science. They explain in clear variables, physical variables, maybe qualitative, maybe quantitative, but there are variables. There are no metaphysical explanations. These are done by the general knowledge people, those who believe in general knowledge, but scientific or a scientist or a scientific knowledge does not believe in the metaphysical explanations. We, a common people, a common person, would simply say that a person is poor because God has made him poor. Scientific would not consider it. Scientific knowledge would not blame God for the poverty of people. They would go into the depth of this study, because we are becoming habitual of blaming others for our own problems. So for the poverty also we may blame any other, even God, but scientists or the scientific knowledge would never consider it proper. As I have already discussed with you, that every phenomena has to be empirically tested in scientific research, in scientific study. Data has to be collected and then hypothesis to be set up, and then it is to be tested, and then it is to be empirically verified, to be accepted or to be rejected. That is the way scientific process of knowledge seeking works. Whereas for common man, it is not possible rather for them. For them they have to give judgment immediately, and they give their conclusion immediately. So I am sure that my submission and my this presentation or lecture has made it clear that what is the difference between scientific knowledge and the common sense knowledge, where how do they differ, and what are the distinguishing factors between the two types of knowledges. With this, I stop here, and we would begin our discussion in the next lecture. Thank you very much.